Now today we're going to be talking about promise. Now, does anybody know what is a promise?
I know. It's breaking a commitment that someone said they will do.
That's exactly right, Grandpa Hoy. Now, for example, let's say that you promised your mom that you clean your room today. And well, the day passed by so quickly that you completely forgot to clean your room. So that didn't happen. So what does that mean? That you did not keep your promise. Another way is probably someone promised you something that they were going to do, but that didn't happen because they might have forgotten just like us, or perhaps they in their heart had decided they weren't going to keep their promise, but verbally communicated to you that they were going to keep their promise. Now today, there's a story in the Bible that there was this person that promised someone that they were going to do, but deep down inside, they tricked him and decided not to keep the promise. Let's see in the Bible story which person that is.
Now there was a period Jacob stayed with his uncle Laban and worked for him for free. Laban one day thought to himself, "It's not fair not to give him any money while he works for me for free." So one day he asked Jacob, "How much money would you want for working for me?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older one was named Leah, and the younger one was named Rachel. Jacob loved the second daughter, Rachel, and wanted to marry her. So he said, "I will work 7 years in return to have Rachel as my wife." So Laban agreed to this ideal and promised that Jacob can have Rachel as his wife after working 7 years for him. The time came after Jacob worked 7 years for Laban. The wedding day came, but Laban did not keep his promise. He tricked Jacob and gave Leah, the older daughter, as his wife instead of Rachel. Jacob found out and was angry and said to him, "You did not keep your promise." Laban apparently did not tell Jacob that it was their custom for the older one to marry first. He said to Jacob, "Finish this wedding ceremony with my older daughter, and then you can have my second daughter and work another 7 years."
Now Laban did not keep his promise, and he did it on purpose, and we should not be following his example of not keeping his promise. We should be following God in terms of how he keeps his promise, and he always keeps his promise, and we can trust and guarantee that he will always follow through. For example, the Bible is made out of the Old Testament and the New Testament. So let's say I separated my Bible into two sections here. So this is the Old Testament and this is the New Testament. Now Jesus, he promised in the Old Testament that Jesus was going to come. The Son of God was going to come. And that he promised that it will come in the line of David. If I can flip through my Bible here, it says in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12, it says, "When your days are over and you are rested with your father, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, who will come from your own body, and I will establish his kingdom." Verse 13, it says, "He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever." Now in the Old Testament, that's what God had promised David, and it did happen, because in the New Testament, if I can flip through my Bible here, in Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, it talks about the genealogy of Jesus, where Jesus came from, and it all started with King David. And so this is only one promise that God made, and that he fulfilled. There are many, many other promises that God promised his people, and he promised to us, and he will keep his promise. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Joshua chapter 23 verse 14. Now I am about to go the way of all the earth. You know with all your heart and soul that not one of all the good promises the Lord your God gave you has failed. Every promise has been fulfilled, not one has failed.